Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for being with us. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered here tonight on the shared traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Hunkaminam-speaking people, including the Tsawwassen and Musqueam, who have been stewards of this land since time immemorial. I offer my respects to all the elders who have gone before us and to the elders and Indigenous people who are with us today. Welcome to the second of our two Delta Chamber of Commerce All Candidates Business Forums. My name is Rob Allen, and I am the Vice Chair of your Delta Chamber of Commerce. This evening, I will be serving as moderator on behalf of the Chamber. For those of you who don't already know me, my day job is as a lawyer and partner of the Richmond law firm Campbell, Froh, May & Rice. In 2014, my family and I moved to Tsawwassen, and we feel extremely lucky to call South Delta our home. Fun fact about me, until last night, at the first All Candidates Forum, I didn't have any previous experience as moderator. Sure, I had emceed a couple weddings and had some experience giving presentations to the public on topics like estate planning and strategies for buying and selling a business, but to be completely candid, this kind of thing is not my bailiwick. In fact, I was a little nervous prior to last night's forum, and again tonight, and was asking one of my business partners for some tips. And this was the advice he gave me. Don't try to be too charming, Rob, too witty, or too intellectual. Basically, just be yourself. Joining me tonight in representing the Delta Chamber of Commerce are Executive Director Jill McKnight, behind me. Also behind me, Lydia Elder, Manager of Policy Development, Government and Stakeholder Relations. And in the front row, Jane Eilert, Event and Member Engagement Manager. Jill and Lydia will serve as question scrutineers this evening, and Jane has organized all of the important logistics to make this event a reality. These folks are most certainly the brains behind the operation, so please join me in thanking Jill and Lydia and Jane for their tireless efforts for putting tonight together. I'm going to briefly explain the format and procedural rules for tonight. Prior to this event, the Delta Chamber contacted all of the Delta mayoral and councillor candidates to invite them to participate. We are pleased that so many of the candidates were able to join us tonight. Stephen Sun and Brian Reed have let us know that they will be unable to attend, unfortunately. Also, just a brief mention that due to an unfortunate misunderstanding for which the Delta Chamber takes full responsibility, Pamela Swanigan was not in attendance last evening, but of course we are happy that she is here tonight. This evening will be divided into two parts. For part one, we will be addressing questions to the candidates for council. Then at approximately 8:15 p.m., we will briefly pause for 2 to 3 minutes while the candidates change places and we shift our focus to our three candidates for mayor. Earlier this evening, the candidates drew numbers for their placement on the stage and their initial order of speaking, and it is my pleasure to introduce you, starting from my left. Dylan Kruger, Daniel Boisvert, Jesse Desage, Malabal Kumar, Jennifer Jo Hall, Julian Jacques, Alicia Guichon, Rod Binder, Pamela Swanigan, Monica Colvin, and Duncan Callender. The format for tonight's forum will be as follows. At the beginning of the forum, the candidates will each have 1 minute to introduce themselves, beginning in the order that I've just introduced them. There will then be a question and answer period where candidates will each be given 1 minute to respond to the questions put to them. Candidates, as a minor change from last night's format, tonight we will be asking candidates to respond to questions in a rolling order. So question 1 will be answered first by Dylan, who is seated in position 1. Then question 2 will be answered first by Daniel, and so on and so forth, until the end of our available time for the question and answer period. At the conclusion of the question and answer period, each candidate will have 1 minute for a closing statement in reverse order from the draw. So starting with Duncan and working their way back to me. Members of the public have submitted questions prior to this forum. Written questions may also be submitted from the floor this evening, but in the interest of time and in an effort to give an opportunity to hear from as many people as possible, We ask that a maximum of one question per audience member be submitted, please. Blank question forms are available in the foyer or from one of our runners. When you have a question ready for submission from the floor, please raise your hand and one of our runners will collect it from you and deliver it to the scrutineers. And at this time, can I ask the runners to put up their hands so the audience can identify you? One up there. Perfect, thank you. The duty of the scrutineers is to screen out duplicate questions or questions deemed not suitable for tonight's session, and to rule out of order any question deemed inappropriate, offensive, or derogatory, or questions that attack the integrity of a candidate. They may also rephrase all or part of a question for efficiency and flow purposes. At our last set of municipal candidates forums in 2018, you told us that you wanted to hear from both mayoral and council candidates. So we've listened to that feedback, and as is evident from the crowded stage, we've had an exceptional turnout to this event. In light of the numbers, and in an effort to respect everyone's time and keep things within the allotted 2 hours, it is unlikely we will have time to address all of the questions we received tonight. As such, we will be forwarding all unanswered, submitted, and scrutineered questions to respond to such questions, to all of the candidates in order to provide them an opportunity to respond to such questions in writing in the days following the forum. Any written responses we receive will be posted on our Delta Chamber of Commerce website on Monday, October the 3rd, and a link to those responses will be shared via our social media channels. As a final note to our audience, it is important that all candidates be given the same opportunity to respond to a question without interruption. If there are interruptions from the audience or another candidate who does not have the floor, I will stop the proceedings until the candidate speaking is given a fair opportunity to respond. If you find yourself moved to applaud any of the candidates' answers, in the interest of time, please hold your applause until the candidate has yielded the floor, and please keep your applause brief so as not to interfere with any of the other candidates' allotted time. And finally, to our candidates, please respond only to the question asked, and remember that you will have only 1 minute to respond. Please strive to be as succinct as possible. In the interest of keeping our rather ambitious agenda for this evening on schedule, we will use the following timekeeping procedure. Time will be kept by the chamber team in the front row, right in the middle. As your time commences, a green card will be held up. When you have 30 seconds remaining, you will see a yellow card. And at the end of your time, a red card will be held up, and you will hear a bell. We ask that all of you respect these rules to ensure that everyone giving their time here tonight has had an equal opportunity to speak. And if all else fails, the staff here have advised me that there are a series of trap doors I can operate from my podium with the touch of a button. At this time, I would like each candidate to deliver their opening remarks in the order determined by the draw, and we remind you that you have 1 minute to speak. We'll start with Dylan.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much to the Delta Chamber of Commerce for having us today, and thank you to all of you for taking the time to listen to this important discussion. My name is Dylan Kruger. I'm a born and raised Delta resident, and it's been my honor to represent you on Delta City Council since 2018. My wife and I were proud to welcome our daughter Sophia into the world just 3 months ago, and being a new dad has really focused my priorities and given new focus to my work on council. I want to help to build the Delta that my daughter will grow up in. That means strong investment in our parks and recreation capital assets and programs, an emphasis on public safety, keeping Delta among the safest communities in Metro Vancouver, and addressing the urgent issues of our generation, the housing crisis and climate change. We also need to continue to work to make Delta an inclusive place for everyone. I'm asking for you to place your trust in me and the entire Achieving for Delta team to tackle these issues and help keep Delta moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan. Daniel.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel Boisvert, and I am a lifelong resident of Delta, and professionally, I'm a notary public. I have many years of government experience, and currently I'm elected as a school trustee, as well as I'm also president of the BC Notaries Association. I have 2 children who have grown up in Delta, and both attend this school right now, and like me before them, have benefited from Delta schools, programs offered through Delta Parks and Rec, and have always felt the safety and security provided by our police and fire departments. A vote for me and my Achieving for Delta team is a vote you can make in confidence that we will objectively carry out our duties to keep this city as one of the best places to live in Canada. We will place specific emphasis on public safety, improving our parks and rec facilities, dealing with the current housing crisis, and of course climate change, while at the same time remaining fiscally responsible. We understand that tax dollars are your dollars, not ours, and we must be strong stewards of these funds. I'm asking you to place your trust in me.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks.
You weren't here last night. Jesse, your turn.
Good evening to everyone. I'm Jesse DeSange, a resident of Delta for the last 40 years. Professionally, I have dedicated my life as coach to the development of our youth to become model citizens of our society. I'm proud to have coached the youth who have done Canada proud by representing our country at the international stage. My mentorship has inspired many to excel in academics through sports scholarships in many universities. In recognition of my contribution, it is my honor to be inducted in the BC Athletics Hall of Fame. It is my privilege to be elected and serve as a Delta School trustee for the last 4 years. I'm humbled and honored to be asked to run with this dynamic, diverse, and experienced Achieving for Delta team by Mayor George Harvey, who I admire for his vision and strong leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Maha.
My name is Dr. Maha Balakuma. I serve the community of Delta as a medical doctor for 22 years. My medical career spans over 40 years. You know what? Throughout my career, I'm used to looking at problems, simple and complicated, and making informed decisions based on thorough analysis and critical thinking. As a counselor, I will use the same habit to make good decisions in council. I believe that you need to have independent voices in council for constructive debate, to ask the tough questions, and for good governance. Having said that, I'm standing to be that independent voice of reason and common sense in council. I'll be accountable only to you, the residents of Delta, and I don't have to toe a party line. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Jo Hall, and I am a controller at Raja Trailer, which is located on River Road in Tilbury. Our business has been in Delta for over 20 years. I am running with Mayor George Harvey and the Achieving for Delta team because I believe in our team's vision of a safe, livable, and inclusive Delta. It's time to elect a council that represents and reflects our diverse community. As a businesswoman, I know our hardworking businesses not only create jobs, but also create opportunities to fund our parks, services, and community events we all love. My family has been able to enjoy our wonderful community, its sports facilities, family-friendly events, and pop-up parks, all championed by the Achieving for Delta team. I want to ensure our children and our businesses continue to prosper here in Delta. This is why I am running with Mayor George Harvey and the Achieving for Delta team. There you go.
Julie.
Hello, my name is Julian Jock, and I'm running for councillor, and I'm running on a community-first platform, and I really just want to try to keep the community feel that Delta has, and for me this means having a balance and ensuring that we're zoning in a way where we can preserve the charm to this place. My goal is to add transparency to the decision-making process and make sure that everyone can understand why we're making the decisions that we're making. I'm a fisherman, I'm a landlord, and I want to get involved to make sure that our voices are heard, and I'll be donating a year's salary to some residents who don't have property. My goal is to turn renters into property owners, preserve our farmland, increase the amount of wild spaces that we have, give additional property rights to owners, and help out our local businesses grow. Thanks.
Thank you. Alicia.
Thank you. Hi there. I'd like to thank the Delta Chamber for having us out today. My name is Alicia Guichon, and I'm running for re-election to City Council on George Harvey's Achieving for Delta team. I have grown up living and working in this community and have called Delta home for my entire life. I come from 5 generations of farming in the Ladner area, and I'm currently raising the 6th generation, my almost 2-year-old son, Clint. My sister and I continue our family tradition with our seasonal farm market in Tawasin, where you can find me most days. I'm very passionate about the preservation and enhancement of our agricultural lands, natural assets, and keeping farming viable as a local industry in Delta. It is more than a passion for me, it's also my way of life. I'm running for re-election to continue to be a voice for everyday people on council, put myself in your shoes, and help make decisions for a thriving Delta community.
Rod?
Thank you, Rob, and thank you to the Delta Chamber. My name is Rod Binder, and I've been living in Delta for over 30 years, where my wife and I have raised our 2 now adult children. Professionally, I am currently a senior executive with more than 30 years of experience managing marketing and brand building programs for Fortune 500 companies across North America. During the last 15 years, I have served as a director on numerous corporate and nonprofit boards. I'm running for council to continue my record of service to this community. In 2012, I was appointed by the mayor and council to serve on the North Delta Area Planning Committee, which was approved in 2016. I currently serve as Vice President of Delta Assist Social Service Agency. I'm the former chair and now treasurer of the Delta Police Foundation, and since 2013, I've been annually selected as the commissioner for the Delta Parks, Recreation, and Culture Commission. During our time now, I look forward to sharing my views, and in my closing remarks this evening, I will share my vision and commitment to the community of Delta. Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Rob. Pamela?
Hi, I'm Pam Swanigan. I guess I'm one of the people that Dylan Kruger referred to yesterday as a radical independent. I'm trying to figure out how I got so radical. Maybe it's my doctorate in English literature. Maybe it's the job I've had for the past 10 years as an MBA coach for Royal Roads University, where I work with up to 50 consultancy papers a year focusing on small business challenges and solutions. Maybe it was my work last summer with the Canadian Chair of Sustainability in Business, where we helped companies, just small ones like McDonald's and Amazon, implement systems-level environmental policies. But I guess none of this fully explains my radical idea that poorly planned growth is a serious business liability, or that you don't, as Mr. Kruger has proposed, put in housing first and worry about infrastructure later. That when we cut all the trees down in a place like this, we are literally sawing off our own branch, business and otherwise. And that for a council to repeatedly hold public hearings. Thank you.
Monica?
Hello, I've been a Delta business owner for 33 years and a resident for 18. I'm a gold medalist paddler, national title stock car driver, coach, and I'm a passionate animal lover. I'm also passionate about democracy. I'm running for choice. I'm not obligated by developer donations nor party policy. No payback obligations here. Last night, we were called radical independents, insinuating that, quote, I quote, nothing would be done if Delta voted for independence. I'm running for City Hall transparency, a desire for more open and positive debate, and primarily for respect of all residents when we participate in public consultations. We are tired of being told of a 3% property tax when mine was 49.7%, all since 2018 Harvey and team. Mainly, we're tired of not being heard for 4 years. I will be that change. My number, my email, you will be heard, and if council refuses your voice, I will personally take an ad out in our papers and report what is or is not happening in the hall. I'm eager to work as a team in the hall, but my team is you. Monica Colvin, publicly serving you.
Last but not least, Duncan.
Hello, my name is Duncan Callender. I've been a resident of Delta for 52 years, 2 of them down here at Ladner and Evergreen Lane, and the rest of the 50 up in North Delta. I've worked in the film business for 38 years, so I know how to do budgets. I know how to look at problems and solve problems. I encourage everybody to think about voting for independence. There's nothing wrong with George Harvey's team, but you need to have more people in there with more information. And one of the things I can do is I can find out information for anybody who wants to ask me things, and I will get them answers. And that's what I've always been good at. I've had lots of jobs over the years, and it's always been people skills that I shine at. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. And I'll invite the audience to applaud the candidates in their opening remarks. It's now time for the question and answer portion of tonight's forum. Candidates, please remember that you have only 1 minute to respond to each question. Starting with Dylan. The City of Delta has an extraordinary combination of industry, significant transportation conduits, rural farming, and suburban living. We are the nexus of major transportation for goods and people throughout BC and an access point for all of Canada. Industry and business contribute significantly to Delta's tax burden to the tune of 46% and school tax burden to the tune of 48.5%. If elected, how will you encourage and support additional business investments in our community?
Well, thank you for the question, and it's been an honor of mine to serve as the liaison over the last 4 years, both to the Delta Chamber of Commerce and the Tsawwassen Business Improvement Association. We've got some absolutely incredible businesses in our community, and we continue to see new businesses moving in as well. We had a really challenging couple of years, obviously, with the COVID pandemic, and I'm so proud of the way that the Delta Chamber and all the different business associations came together with the city to make some important changes in order to promote our business community. Changes like our expanded patio program, which has been so successful that we made it permanent, and we actually learned it was good for the businesses and the community liked it as well. What Mario's has been able to do and what Il Posto has been able to do and Britannia Brewing, that's the type of innovation that helps businesses succeed. We need as a council to continue to have that business-minded lens to be flexible, to allow our businesses to survive, and to allow our residents to enjoy those services. That's the lens that I would continue to take as a Delta City Councillor moving forward.
Daniel. Same question.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. I thought it was a different. I'm sorry. I wasn't here last night, so I thought it was a different question. Okay. You got me off guard.
Do you want the question again?
Yeah. I think, to Dylan's point, there were a lot of great things that were done during the pandemic, and I have to agree with that program for restaurants. It's certainly something that I think everyone, including myself, got to enjoy. We have great industrial lands, Tilbury and Annacis Island. We need to really respect those communities as well, if we can call them that, a business community. We need to make sure that those areas are able to generate growth. They certainly contribute, if my numbers are correct, about 40% to our tax base, which is significant. And they certainly need council's respect. So I hope that we're going to be able to work closely with those businesses, offer them opportunities to expand and grow.
Thank you. Jesse.
It is very important to support a local business, because a local business, if you're supporting a local business, mean more jobs. More jobs mean it's a more tax for a city, and then you can invest back into a public, into a city. Like my fellow candidate says, I'm in favor to the city development. That means support to more business, mean more jobs, more tax. And like Daniel said, 40% of tax comes from Tilbury. And we need to be in favor of those kind of business and in that kind of area to develop more, and also inviting more high-tech industry into a city also. So those kind of things we need to consider to bring more business to our community, to make our city better in a physical part. Thank you.
Thank you. I've had a note passed to me, and I'm just going to remind all the candidates that we have our townkeepers in the front row. We have a yellow card. Apparently, we've only got 3 colors to work with. So we have a yellow card that will be turned sideways at 15 seconds. So you'll get a little bit more of an advance notice before you hit your red card and dreaded bell. Okay, Maha next, please.
So, yes, businesses are so important, and we have such varied businesses in Delta. North Delta has different, and Ladner Village has a different business atmosphere. So supporting world revolves around business. If there's no business, world is stagnant. So very important. So how we support that is there are 2 types of business. One are the existing businesses, and the other one we want to draw more businesses. So how do we do that? Dialogue is the best thing for existing business. Find out from them exactly what they need. Especially look at the struggling businesses. Especially Ladner Village, I'm told that some businesses are struggling because of all the customers are going to the mall. So try to see what we can do. Can we help them with some of the property taxes for the needs, the ones who really need it? And can we revitalize that area? Things like that. For the people to bring in new businesses, I think we can, development should be multi-use developments. You can promote that. And then for the first few years, we might be able to give a tax break or something like that until they get well established, things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Okay. Our family business is located on River Road. Delta is central in many ways with the 9917 terminal, hence why we haven't moved. And we've been there for 20 plus years. We contribute to 46% of the tax base here in Delta. We have the ability to increase our industrial land efficiency. Mayor Harvey has always been a forward thinker, and 20 years ago championed the Save Our Industrial Land initiative. We have the ability to attract new businesses and investments, whether it's manufacturing, breweries, etc. If elected, we would ensure the permitting process would be quick and more efficient. Assurance of low taxes, in addition to appointing an economic development ambassador to actively go out and seek investments and opportunities for businesses to set up shop and be sustainable. There you go.
Julie.
Yeah, I think I agree with everyone here. We should be trying to lower the barrier to entry. I'm pro-entrepreneur. I want entrepreneurs to do well and get started as quickly as possible and just reduce the red tape, make it easier to get business licenses. And from what I hear, it can take months to get business licenses. And nobody should be waiting months, especially smaller businesses. It makes sense if you're a giant port or like a big LNG plant, that makes sense. But for small businesses, we need to make it very easy for them to just get a license, get started, because that just adds cost to the entrepreneur, and it's better to have lower barriers to entry. Thank you.
Alicia.
Thank you. I think it's safe to say that our local businesses really are some of the backbones of our community. I think as the city, what we can continue to do is to support these businesses. Sometimes that's through funding for initiatives, just keeping those relationships open with the Chamber, with our Ladner Business Association, and in Tawasin, the Business Association, as well in North Delta. I think just working on these communications, and I would agree too that there's some work to do here at City Hall for some processes to speed things up, make it easier for businesses to open and want to open and encourage that growth. I also think that all the things going on within the community just really attract people, and people go to the shops, go to our businesses, and I think that's my main point, to focus on bringing the community together.
Thank you. Rob.
One of the things that I think is important is that we try to expand our industrial lands, but I want to be very clear that our Achieving for Delta team and myself, we will never expand industrial lands into any of our farming community. That is precious and it won't be touched, in addition to Burns Bog. So that is off bounds, period. But we do want to look at opportunities to expand our industrial lands. And part of the initiatives of what was called and Jen referred to it, is to expand our industrial lands in the Tilbury area and in other parts of Delta where it's appropriate. For example, the area around the Boundary Bay Airport, it was lobbied hard to get an exit off Highway 99 to help support transportation. So as we improve transportation, we help to move the goods that are being produced in our community. The next thing is as we improve livability in our community by better housing, we attract more employees. Can you imagine having a 10-minute commute to work? That is something that should be part of the future of Delta, and that is something that we want to work towards, is having to live, work, and play in our community. Thank you.
Pam, you're for.
I'm not sure I agree with the premise of this question. I understand the value of businesses and of industry. I think that proceeding in a reckless fashion and at a breakneck pace without looking at the infrastructure needs and without looking at ecological preservation is folly. And I think we're going to end up with a paved over Delta that nobody actually wants to live in. I think that saying because you pay all these taxes, everybody pays taxes here. I pay taxes. I'm not a truck company owner, but I pay taxes. I don't want my bog on fire. I don't want the ecology destroyed just because we're going, whatever you want, you can have it. I think we need to talk to the business community, help them see that it's in their best interests to preserve
Thank you,
the
Pam.
ecology that we live in.
There's been a lot of talk about helping businesses and communicating with businesses. As a business owner, business people know how to start their business and get going. So I don't think we come start in business asking for handouts, and I certainly didn't. When businesses are developed because of the tax base at the expense of our beautiful land, and one would be the casino that is in the middle of our Pacific Flyway. It's world renowned, and Harvey put that through the first month in office. It was a favor for big political contributions. The bog is not saved. It has a large plot of land that is not saved, and at present, unless Delta buys that land outright, it will be developed for industry, and I think that's going to be a shame. So that's all I have to say. There's so much more to business than the tax base, and I think people are smart enough to realize that. Thank you.
And Duncan.
Thank you. Listening to everybody else talk about the business, if I was a business owner, why would I come to Delta? People in North Delta don't normally come down to Ladner unless it's the farm market, in the summertime. People from Ladner, how often do you go up to North Delta to go to a business? There is a shortage of amount of actual space that you can use to build a business. So I think myself, if Delta really wants to do this, they have to be progressive and go out and search for some of these smaller companies that can also build a business here, but also have the people who work here can live here instead of going through the tunnel or going over the bridge. And the biggest factor, and we've talked about this and other things, is transit. And also the ambulance service. This has got to be ridiculous. We've got a hospital down here in Ladner, but up in North Delta, you've got to go to the Surrey Hospital. But there's so many things that the Delta Council and Mayor can actually pursue and pursue hard to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan. So we'll shift gears to another question, a second question. Reminder that we're doing a rolling order tonight, so we'll start this question with Daniel, and to borrow some baseball terms, that puts Jesse on deck and Maha in the hole. In order to address the critical housing shortage in Delta, increased housing in our town centers is necessary. How will you champion this necessary growth and work to bring residents on board when they don't feel like they should have to make any changes?
Thank you for the question. Mike is not, oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Housing is critical. Housing is absolutely critical. We do not have enough of the right kind of supply, and we need to address that. First thing that needs to be done certainly is at City Hall, we need to get plans need to get them through quicker, especially projects that are already approved under OCP. They need to get fast-tracked through. We are in desperate need of more housing options, or our youth and certainly our seniors are not going to be able to stay in Delta. So that's part of it. Second part of it, we have space to develop density where density works. Density does not work everywhere in Delta, but there are corridors where it works, and those corridors link up to transit, and transit, of course, links people to their jobs. So those are areas that we need to look at. So those are two of the plans, but there's more to say. It just takes more than a minute. Thank you.
Jesse?
Yes, housing issue is a very, very important issue in our city, and not in our city, it's all over. I advocate for Delta First, Delta Family First framework, which is we have in the Delta. So with increasing housing option for seniors, most vulnerable, and the young family, see each individual, you have to see it, because we need to provide optionals to every person who can buy or who can rent a place to live. And this is a way we can keep our generation close. And I'm working as in a school board. We lost 300 students. The reason is our young family cannot afford to live here. So we have to provide more options for each type of a people so they can have their own residence to live in a Delta.
Thank you. Maha.
Can I start? So, housing, as everyone said, is very important. Our children are moving out. Seniors can't downsize. They are moving out. And in terms of data, Delta has only 1% of undeveloped land and only 12% of developed residential land. The other land is all for other use, agriculture, burns, bog, industrial, and all that stuff. We don't want to encroach on those things. So Delta does not have land, and that means gradual densification is a necessity, not an option. It's the only option. How else when you don't have land? So having said that, gradual densification is what I support, but more than that, there's a bigger problem brewing, or it's already there. That is the rental affordability and senior housing. That is becoming a bigger problem. It's going to get worse. Any development that comes in should focus on that area, that is purpose-built rentals and senior housing and other priority housing. I will support any incentives for the developments to focus on that area. Only 20% of our housing stock is rental. Out of that 20%, most are in North Delta. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Okay. We all acknowledge there's a housing crisis here. Delta needs more options for housing. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But we need to focus on density in our major transportation corridors and in our town centers. People are wanting close proximity to their daily doings and their workplaces. They want walkable communities, especially with gas prices the way they are. And Mayor Harvey and the Achieving for Delta team are committed to ensuring housing for young families, seniors, and the most vulnerable. We'll do this by increasing the permit process, ensuring there's below market options, rentals, secondary suite options, along with advocating for developers to ensure that Delta families receive priority to access new projects. We want people to stay in Delta. We want to keep generations together, and that's the goal.
Julie.
I don't think that any of what we're talking about here will actually make a difference. No amount of government legislation can really override the market forces that exist today. And the demand for properties to go up in price is just too high. There are too many stakeholders. Nobody truly wants prices to go down. I do not want prices to go down. Governments do not want prices to go down. But we should be making it easier for anyone to get on the property ladder and build wealth. So, if I'm elected, I'm going to try to push for a municipal framework that allows for property owners to extend their property rights and will let them increase their property values, turn part of their equity into cash. What's the point of sitting on a property that's worth $4 million if you can't get cash out of it? There are solutions to this problem where property owners can have their house prices go up through fractional ownership and tokenizing property.
Thank you. Alicia.
Thank you. We know the housing needs, and it is a balance. I'm more comfortable with some moderate growth and a variety of housing kinds, and I do want to focus that growth on our main corridors, Ladner Trunk Road, 56, Scott Road. Most importantly, I want to listen to the community. I agree infrastructure needs to keep up with what we're doing, but also respecting our existing neighborhoods. I want to see more below market rental housing and also help those who need it most, our seniors, those with intellectual disabilities, and young families. There's a real crisis, but it's a balancing act, and I just want to take it one project at a time.
Rod.
You know, when you own a house, you want it to go up in value. When you want to buy a house, you want them all to get cheaper. And that's the tension that we live in our part of the world. Land is expensive. The dirt under our homes is very, very expensive, and that's the challenge. So how do we mitigate that? Density is one of the solutions. We need to put more people on a smaller part of the land, and that density has to be in the right place. Build the right house in the right place, put density in the right place. That's on transit corridors, that's in town centers, that's where people can have a livable community. We need to also respect current zoning. We need to look at it, we need to listen to people, but we also want to find different opportunities and variety for our housing with below market rental, with social housing, and look for opportunities. And when people come forward for that, we will listen to those opportunities to help to keep people live in Delta. Thank you.
Pam.
Hey, well, to start with, I think that ultimately we need to start the painful and slow but necessary process of definancializing housing, because I've been on this planet nearly 60 years. When I was growing up, a house was a home. It wasn't your bank account. It wasn't the sole repository of your wealth. As long as we continue to financialize housing, it's insatiable. The market is insatiable. This will never stop. And that's just common sense. I think that this whole idea of rental as a silver bullet is nonsensical as long as we don't have vacancy control. So if I were on council, I would lobby the Horgan government or the EB government, as it's probably about to be, very hard for vacancy control. I'm probably the only renter on this board, on this panel right now. I live in Barbican. In 2020, they raised their rent 50%.
Monica.
First of all, I don't know where I would consider a transportation corridor anywhere in Delta. There's nowhere, if I had to get somewhere quickly, that would happen on any of our transportation. First of all, Delta absolutely has to have a plan. We do not have, as legislated by the provincial government, a proper, complete Delta plan. So we're running amok. This council tried to put in a building in North Delta, and the residents overwhelmingly came out against it. When they complained about the traffic on Scott Road, which is insane, Harvey, and I quote, said, "I don't have traffic where I live," which is on a golf course. Ladner village people came out overwhelmingly against the development that has been proposed in the village. And it seems that that is just going to be pushed and pushed and pushed till it's finally through. I believe the residents need to be heard. I'll be that voice. This is going to be paving paradise. It really is. And we live in the most magical place in the Lower Mainland.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I live in North Delta, and just recently I'm in a small cul-de-sac which was densified when it was first built about 40 years ago. They just put in a 5,000 square foot house in that place where every other house, the biggest one was about 2,200 square feet. When I contacted City Hall, nobody could explain to me. They just said, "Oh, we're changing the plans." Well, one thing, there's going to be no below market housing in Delta. We just don't have the land for it. But there has to be with some of these, we had a ranch originally, now there's 2 houses being built on that, which is a good sign. But there has to be more densification and less of these monster homes. The other thing about it too is you're going to get more school taxes when you have more houses there. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dylan.
Testing. There we go. First of all, it's important that we make fact-based decisions, both as potential elected officials and as voters. Casino project was referenced. That was a project that was approved by the previous council. George Harvey was not the mayor. I was not a councillor. Nobody at this table voted for the casino project. That's number one. Number two, it was referenced that there's no plan. That's also not true. The Housing Action Plan was passed unanimously by this council. It's a plan that calls for incentivizing more rentals, more below-market rentals, and working with local groups. In the audience today, we have members of the Housing Be Mine Society. You know, there's 500 adults in Delta with intellectual disabilities that are looking for permanent housing, not segregated from the community, but integrated with the community. We need to work with local partners to create that type of desperately needed housing so that people, as these adults are and their parents are aging, they can find a home in our community and live their lives with dignity and respect. So we need to follow our housing action plan. We need to find more housing for people with intellectual disabilities, and we can do that if we follow the guidelines that this council has outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. There were a couple mentions of transportation corridors and transportation in our last set of answers, and that dovetails nicely into our next question having to do with transit posed by someone in the audience. You have mentioned our great industrial areas and the contribution they make to our tax base. What will you do to support improving transit so that people can live and work in our community without having to drive a car? Jesse.
Well, like, well, that's an option, so right. If you develop a very core area like Scott Road, Town Center in Ladner, or the 56th Street in Twasin, which is a high-density area. And then the people don't have to buy a car. They can step out and you can have a better transit system, because the transit are required more densified. They're more ridership. If we have more people who can ride in a buses, so they can provide more buses. So what we do need it in the Delta is that we need to develop those areas, building more housing, optional housing, and then we could have a better transit system.
Thank you. Maha.
Yeah, so transport is very important for not only the industries, also for the community as a whole, because it's getting crowded, and so transport becomes a problem. There are two things. One is TransLink deals with a lot of the transport, so I think I'll be lobbying TransLink, because I saw I kind of glanced their TransLink 2050 plan. They have all these plans. They're talking about rapid bus lines across from somewhere to goes to Twasin. So I think lobbying for TransLink is important, and also cycling. They're building complete communities, and complete communities means that you are going. Cycling is going to become a bigger means of transport too within the community. So we should encourage cycling too, cycling paths and all that. Cycling paths with cycling in-trip facilities. So in many ways, I think transport is becoming an essential part, and we should see what we can do. Yeah.
Jennifer.
Okay. Hi there. TransLink and transportation is very important. It's very important. Mayor Harvey has been a strong voice for us on this front with regards to Delta, with the introduction of the rapid bus along Scott Road, improvement of our transit times. He fought for more services for the Twasin ferries, but there's still more to do. If we want people to be able to work and play and live, we need we need some density, and that's what it comes down to.
Julian.
Yeah, so I agree. I think we need just better transit in general. I'd like to see more buses, especially connecting the 3 villages. I was looking it up the other day. I was going to bike to North Delta from Ladner. Or sorry, not bike. I was going to take the bus, and it was going to take an hour to get there. It would have taken me less time just to bike there. Yeah, I'm a cyclist as well. I try to walk when I can. I try to stay out of my car as much as I can. And frankly, that's one of the reasons why I moved here to Ladner specifically. So if I had a vote, I'd vote for more transit and better transit.
Alicia.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just to build on that a little bit, our council just has been undergoing a cycling master plan, and having that to really connect the community would be really important to help get people out of their vehicles. We're also doing some rural road improvements, which I think also helps cycling and sharing the road. That's key for safety for everybody. It's also critical, I think, in this to have a second exit out of the tunnel and connect Ladner with the rest of River Road. I think that will be a priority for us, and Mayor Harvey's leadership on the crossing and getting that done, I think, will be very important, especially for us here in Ladner. And just having Delta more connected with transit that way. But going to keep building on this, keep looking for opportunities, and following Mayor Harvey's leadership, strong leadership with transit, with TransLink will get us on the right path. Thanks.
Thank you. Rod.
I referred earlier to my time that I spent on the North Delta Area Planning Committee, and we had presentations from TransLink, and they threw a lot of statistics and a lot of numbers at us, and frankly I was overwhelmed, and I didn't really think that anything that they were telling us was going to make any difference at all. 10 years later, with a lot of lobbying from the city of Delta, and with density that has come on Scott Road, they came forward and they said, you now are worthy, that wasn't their words, those are mine, of now getting a beeline that will now fast track people from the whole length of Scott Road down to the Scott Road SkyTrain station. It is that kind of focus and that kind of work with other agencies such as TransLink where you can actually get improvements. It takes time, a long time perhaps, 10 years. I actually don't think 10 years is that long, but it's that kind of focus and it's that kind of working together to get improved transit. But we have to be focused and we have to be working hard and lobbying to those agencies such as TransLink.
Pam.
Hi. I saw a very interesting poll in The Optimist just a couple days ago that asked about transit use. And in that poll, 5.45% of the respondents said that they take the bus on a regular basis or public transit. So I kind of wonder who we're talking about here when we say, let's put in more transit. I wonder if what's really being asked here is, how are we going to bus our retail workers from North Delta to South Delta in a way that makes them only spend 70 minutes on the bus instead of 90 minutes on the bus each direction. I'm a retail worker, among other things, and I'm a bus taker, and I don't see a lot of people getting out of their cars. So I don't know why we don't have EVO. I don't know why we don't have more shuttles, not just for the Tsawwassen Mills people. They're the lucky ones who get a shuttle. Anyway, thank you.
I have to agree with these two here. First of all, TransLink it's a symbiotic relationship. Delta can't sit here and make all these plans because, first of all, we don't actually have a master plan. That's the beginning. And I can't even see how, at the span that Delta is, that we're ever going to get a transit system that really, really works, much like the SkyTrain. TransLink, like I said, will only build when you densify. So which comes first? I don't know. On Scott Road, I keep talking about Scott Road. They just took the bus pull-out lanes on Scott Road so that buses now stop right in the middle of all the traffic. How is that a great plan? If Delta worked with TransLink on that, is a dismal, dismal failure. So this is a big question, and it's for more than just Delta to solve this problem. Thank you.
Duncan.
I hate to repeat everything that everybody said, but I'm actually learning more from some of the people who have been on council the last 4 years than I've ever found from City Hall. The biggest thing is Delta is going to be a car place. You're going to have a car because transit shouldn't be reactive. It should be positive, and it should be going there and saying, you can't densify and then hope that the buses will come. We have to have more push to get people, and having 10-year plans or master plans, I'd like people to do it now. Never mind talking about it. I don't want to hear politicians of any sort to talk about what they're going to do in the future. Let's get it going now. It's real simple. Thank you.
Dylan. Mike.
Thank you. And again, I think it's important to have fact-based discussions. We do have a transportation master plan. It's called Transport 2050. It was ratified by the Mayor's Council at TransLink with input from all the cities in Metro Vancouver. And we also have a cycling master plan, which has already been referenced. It's been a real pleasure of mine over the last 4 years to serve as Mayor Harvey's alternate on the Mayor's Council at TransLink as they've been working to put this plan together. And absolutely, there is very close coordination between TransLink and the municipalities that it's made up of. It's no secret that over the years, south of the Fraser has been very underserviced by transit. That's a reality that is very strongly emphasized in the Transport 2050 plan. I'm actually really excited about some of the investments that are going to be coming. Rapid Bus has been mentioned, but also in South Delta, much stronger connections along our express route lines, the 601, the 602, the 620. And recognizing that south of the Fraser is the area that is growing fastest than anywhere else in Metro Vancouver, so we have to be proactive and put the services there. It's a really good plan, and the Mayor's 10-year capital investment plan is going to see some significant and much-needed improvements here in Delta.
If I may, Dan.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, lots has been said, and I think the question about what comes first, densification or TransLink, I think we can look to Scott Road and see that there has been some densification up there, and the rapid bus is a reality. So TransLink, I think, sees that when you are able to put people in a centralized place, that they will provide services. And hopefully the same thing can be done in other parts of Delta. I know we do have a cycling master plan. I'm a cyclist myself, so I'm looking very much forward to seeing that develop. And that's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I have one more time for one more question from the audience. There are a number of large projects proposed for the City of Delta. What process will you use when reviewing these proposed large projects to ensure that you make a balanced and well-informed decision about them? Maha,
I didn't get the question. Can you?
I'll read it again. There are a number of large projects proposed for the City of Delta. What process will you use when reviewing these proposed large projects to ensure that you make a balanced and well-informed decision about them?
I'm not privy to all the large projects that are happening, but what process? I think I'll let to wait to get into council and decide on what are the processes that I can do. I really can't tell you much about it at this point of time. Large projects, I'm not even sure which ones are you talking about, but I'll tell you that I will have to pass on this question until I get to council to know what processes are there and how I can improve them, or what else can I do to make it better. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Jennifer.
I think the Achieving for Delta team and ourselves, modernization is so important, technology, communication. Modernizing engagement between citizens and City Hall through Let's Talk and online engagement. It's a portal that allows Delta citizens and residents to connect on civic priorities and issues from the comfort of their own homes. I think as we're shifting to people not wanting to drive, perhaps not having access to bus or quick enough access to bus to get to City Hall, I think that's a real issue, and that's a positive in the right direction of using technology to be able to communicate and have dialogue between City Hall and our citizens. So I think that's one way we could do that.
Thank you. Julian.
Yeah, well, I think the process is just to try to listen to everyone and try to hear both sides of the story. I mean, this is all pretty simple stuff, and try to make my best judgment call. But what I would like to do is add transparency to the decision making, because it's very frustrating when a decision is made that you kind of disagree with, and sometimes just seeing the logic behind that. So I would at least express my decisions, who I talked to, and why I came to the conclusion that I came to, maybe like put up a decision tree or a graph or something. So at the end of the day, I just want to add transparency and try to listen to everyone.
Thank you.
Alicia.
Thank you. Yeah, I think no matter what kind of projects we're talking about, the city, we provide times of public consultation that could be online. I hope that we can go back to in-person as well. I know COVID kind of stalled that, but I do think there's a lot of benefits to in-person consultation. And I think online is great, but and we do have a robust communication system. Let's Talk Delta, you email, phone, anything like that. But I connect well in person. I like to be readily available to people. My line of work in the community just keeps me open to people, and I found that to be some of the best times I just hear any type of concern or comments from the community. My history on council has also been, I like public hearings. They're hard, they're emotional. You hear things from all sides. I do feel like the community comes out. I do think they're beneficial. And I'm really just here to listen to the community and do my best to make educated decisions based on all these comments that I hear.
I think it's the people in this room and the people that are watching us and that will learn, that will hear from us, are going to have the best ideas and input. And that's who we need to listen to, is the people in this community. It is a balance, though, between consultation, information, and then action. And at some point, we also do have to move forward with decisions, but it has to be done with getting as much information as possible. I know that the previous mayor and council, our current mayor, Harvey, and council have committed that there's going to be meetings in the north and in the south. They're going to be split both ways so that there will be opportunity to hear and to address the mayor and council at that time. The only gift I think COVID gave us maybe was Zoom. That may be the only one. And that means that there will be opportunities to also engage if you can't come in person, and I think we should continue to retain that. And as part of that listening, I want to let you know that I may not have all the answers. My wife does, but I don't. But I commit to you, listening will be critical.
Thank you. Pam?
When I look at the major projects, such as the Tilbury LNG expansion and Roberts Bank Terminal 2, my first approach would be to ask, does this serve wisdom or does this serve greed? I think we have to ask ourselves, what do we do about the greed problem? I asked my stepfather, who's a longtime MLA and cabinet minister, and I said, what do we do about this? What do we do about people not just making profits, but profiteering? What do we do about us giving away Delta to developers and to large, companies, corporations? And he said, Pam, even Jesus didn't know what to do about greed. So, I'm not going to say that I know more than Jesus, that's for sure. But I think we need to take a long view. I think we need to look at,
Thank you.
said what I need to say.
As I said in my opening, that public consultation is key. Our public consultations and our hearings are a sham. The public overwhelmingly came out. We had documentists, we had professionals, we had reports against the Southlands development. We had the same for the casino. They were both pushed through. I don't know what we can do except listen to the people, but if council goes back and doesn't listen to the people and doesn't take that information and votes the way they want to, because they are funded by developers and they have to pay back the favors that they've given them to get elected, we are doomed. I won't be that person. I'm not funded by anyone, and I am mortified at what council has done against public opposition. Thank you.
Duncan?
Some of the things that have been said about large projects coming to Delta, okay, but not expressing what they are, where they're going to be, what the transit's going to be like, the information there's a lot of lack of. Like, anybody here should be able to phone up the mayor or any councillor and find out exactly what they want to know. How do you do your input? How do you phone up City Hall and say you've got a problem or about the densification of your communities? There's no way to do this. You can get through to certain people, but how far does it go? And I say that even though not everybody has a computer, that everything should be on that computer that's so transparent. And it should be very simple to figure out the information. So then we can make a decision about the taxes, about the councillor, about the mayor. To me, it's simple. Maybe some people think I'm simple, but let's get this information out there. I'm tired of hearing people tell me that all this information, sorry.
Thank you. Dylan?
Well, thank you. The Southlands project was mentioned. That's another project that was approved back in 2015 by the previous council. George Harvey was not the mayor. I was not on council. Nobody at this table voted on that project. When it comes to large projects in our community, it's very important. We have a guiding document called the Official Community Plan. Projects that conform to that plan should find opportunities to move forward quickly to council for discussion, because those are the projects that we know align with the community's vision for an area. Projects that do not align with the official community plan should be subject to much further scrutiny and public feedback, because those would be deviations from what was previously discussed. I do believe that we have good projects come forward, especially projects that have market rental and below market rental projects that conform to our official community plan. We need to find ways to not get stuck in the paralysis of reporting and getting stuck in the planning department's desk, but rather get before council for what should be a quick decision because it aligns with the community's vision. So again, the official community plan is the guiding document, but I do agree with my colleague, Councillor Guichon. Public hearings are a great way to get that feedback.
Thank you. Dan?
Thanks. Large projects or small projects affect people in Delta, whether you're doing a one-lot split or you're consolidating 20 lots to build a townhome complex. They all affect the people that live in the neighborhood. So of course we have to listen. Delta has a process in place through applications, through readings, through public hearings, through consultation and feedback. I certainly know in my last 4 years as a trustee, I was blessed with very strong staff that were always giving us excellent information and very strong reports. I have no doubt it'll be the same at Delta. These are all the processes that we have to go through, and I, as a councillor, would do so objectively. Collaborate with my colleagues, collaborate with the public, attempt to build consensus before moving forward. That's how I work. That's how I work on other boards. That's how I work as a trustee, and that's how I'd want to work as a councillor. Thanks.
And Jesse.
Yeah, being a councillor's real job would be of serving to a public. So no matter what type of a project we are seeing or talking about, the process should be fair, reliable, appropriate for the consultations, making a right decision for public. Thank you.
Thank you. Council candidates, the cross-examination phase of tonight's proceedings are now complete. At this time, I would like to invite each candidate to give their closing statement, this time in reverse order of the original draw, and remind you that you have 1 minute to speak. We'll start with Duncan.
Thank you very much for everybody that came out tonight. I'd just like to say that all the information that we've got today from a lot of these councillors, I'm not a big fan of getting information from staff without looking at it myself, so that's one of the things. But the other thing to consider is the federal government, the commission, wants to divide Delta into 3 political areas. It's going to be very hard for the mayor and the council to get anything done if one of the areas in North Delta becomes NDP and the other area not too far becomes Liberal and one of them becomes Conservative. Who's ever in power in Ottawa is going to control that. So that's something to think about. This is something that has to do with this election too. You have to be aware of that fact. And get hold of the commission and tell them what you think, because Delta should stay as one piece. If we can do that, whoever's the mayor, whoever's the councillors are going to have more power, they're going to have more discretion, they can be better for you. Thank you.
Monica.
To continue on my opening statement, I usually start my morning with a quote that comes in from a lovely lady from Delta. This one came from Deshane Stokes, and it says, "Blind party loyalty will be our downfall. We must follow the truth wherever it leads." I think that was a very appropriate quote for this morning. She knew I was coming to the debate. And I think it's very important to have independent voices on this council. You have no choices if it's only a full slate of one party. I would like to be that voice for you. I would respect the public servant position, and we are public servants, and it doesn't seem that people are remembering the servant part of what we do. So I ask you to elect me as your public servant, and I will be your voice. Thank you.
Pam, your final thoughts.
You know, I've listened to this series of leading questions, and I wonder if the business community really wants it to be this way. I wonder if the business people, especially the small business people, really want to be the opposition to the non-business people in the community. If they really want to position themselves as the bad guys, the ones who are saying, we give the city all the tax money and therefore we want our way, we're going to throw our weight around. Do we not all want a green and thriving and people-based, livable place to live? Why would the Chamber of Commerce and or the developer powers that be pit themselves against the rest of the society and community in the way that they do? This is my question.
Rod.
Thank you, Rob, and to the Delta Chamber of Commerce for hosting us tonight, and to the folks who took the time out to listen to some of our answers to questions. My community experience in volunteering has allowed me to engage with countless Delta residents and business leaders. My intimate exposure to Delta's recreational, development, public safety, and social fabric has provided a tremendous perspective and education. I feel this equips me and positions me to guide Delta's plans and priorities. I'm running with a commitment to bring a thoughtful and intentional approach to addressing challenges. I'm privileged to have been chosen to join the Achieving for Delta team. We are a very diverse group of individuals that will bring our individual voice to council. We have drafted clear policies which are clearly available to read at any time online or discuss with us. Working together, we will get things done for our community, but when we disagree, We will debate heavily to find those solutions. As a longtime resident of Delta, I truly care about the unique and in so many ways diverse community. I'm eager to listen, guide, and be part of the future. I want a community that's safe, vibrant, which keeps young families.
Thank you,
vote for me on.
Alicia.
You know the rest.
Alicia.
Thank you. Just want to thank the Chamber again, the organizers, everyone running, and everyone in the audience for being here tonight. Since 2018, I've been a counselor that is fair, does her homework, listens to the community, and stands up for her beliefs, especially when it's been hard to do so. If re-elected, I will continue to be Delta's link to the agriculture community, its environment, and protecting our natural areas. I will keep supporting our seniors, investing in our youth, keep our taxes low, and keep our services up. I'm a mother, a farmer, a small business owner, and I've grown up embedded in our community, and I've loved connecting with residents on an everyday basis. I'm committed to listening, learning, and acting on issues that matter most to you, and to take it one project at a time. I want to give back to a community that has given me so much. I'm no stranger to hard work, and I want to keep working hard for you, and I hope my last 4 years have shown you that. On October 15th, vote for me, Alicia Guichon, your local farmer.
Thank you. Jillian.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, everyone. It's really appreciated. It's nice to see that there's so many people here. And yeah, I'd say if you do like what I said, then vote for Julian Jacques. I really just want to get involved and make sure that there are more voices heard. I'm not a politician. I just want to give back to the community and make sure that there's an added layer of transparency. And like I mentioned, I will be donating a year's salary to residents who do not own property in Delta, because that means a lot to me. My motivation is really that I'd like to get everyone on the equity ladder and help them own property and build wealth. I think that's very important. And I really like this place. I want to keep it feeling like home, and I'll be happy to listen to anyone. Thanks. Oh, vote for Julian. I still have some time. Vote for Julian.
Jennifer, the floor is yours.
Oh, sorry. Thank you to the Delta Chamber, the volunteers, fellow candidates, and everyone who is in attendance tonight. I have 2 children, Madison and Rockwell. I want to ensure that Delta continues to be a place where they can live, work, and play. Mayor Harvey and the Achieving for Delta team, their vision allows for that progress. We have witnessed Mayor Harvey's track record, and it speaks for itself. The election is pivotal in that we continue to move in the right direction. I'm running for council to be a voice at the table to ensure that we continue to build on our past achievements and strengthen our Delta to be a place where my children and yours can raise their future families. I'm determined to work with all members of our community to ensure Delta continues to be fiscally responsible, invest in long-term viable projects, and to grow our economy. I'm so honored to be a part of this team of individuals who are not only diverse, but have various experiences and lenses that will promote insightful discussions with a collective goal in mind to have Delta be the best place it can. In best place it can be in Canada. On October 14th, get out there and vote. Vote for me, Jennifer Johal, and the Achieving for Delta team. Let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Maha.
I want to say this again. Independent voices should be heard in council. I'm standing to be that independent voice of reason and common sense in council. I served this community for 22 years, and I want to continue to serve this community. Other issues that I'm passionate about are senior well-being, mental health issues, and substance use issues. In closing, I want to say this. I care for Delta. I am committed to the residents of Delta. I have the courage to debate the tough issues in council. So, caring, commitment, and courage are the CCC principles that I'll be working with while in council. That's me, caring, commitment, and courage. So on the 15th of October, I ask for your vote for Maha Balakumar to be an independent voice in council. Thank you.
Jesse.
Thank you. Delta has been home for my family for 40 years. My children were raised, schooled in Delta. In the last 3 decades, hundreds of parents have entrusted the future of their young boys and girls in my care, to help them become model students, good athletes, and ideal civic citizens. I say it with the great pride. Not one of them was disappointed with my guidance and mentorship. If elected with your support, I will advocate for a safe, healthy, and active lifestyle in our wonderful community and will promote culture of sports in Delta for our youth. On October 15th, please vote for me and entire Achieving for Delta team. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Dan.
In 2018, as part of the Achieving for Delta team, I was elected as a school trustee to the Delta Board of Education, where I currently sit as the vice chair of the board. I am proud of the work that we were able to achieve alongside my fellow trustees to ensure that the limited funds we were provided were used to deliver the highest quality education to Delta students. This was done through many hours of collaboration and building consensus before making any decision. If elected as a councillor for the City of Delta, I promise to work objectively and to always listen to many points of view, and finally, to foster consensus before arriving at a decision. On October 15th, please vote for me, Daniel Boisvert, and my entire Achieving for Delta team. Thank you.
Final thoughts to Dylan.
Thank you. You know, I'm so proud to live in Delta, and I'm so proud to have represented you on Delta Council for the last 4 years. In 2018, I was elected as the youngest councillor ever to serve in the history of Delta, and I was so honored that Mayor Harvey asked me to join his team because I represented a different perspective. And that's exactly what George has done with the Achieving for Delta team of candidates before you today. He's brought candidates from different walks of life together that represent different and varied perspectives, each equally qualified. And when you have different perspectives at the council table, you're able to make better decisions. We don't always vote the same way. Mayor Harvey and I voted against each other on a number of occasions. Councillor Guichon and I don't always vote the same way. But we do agree on some fundamentals, and you do need that agreement in order to help move the city forward in some key areas. One issue we didn't get to talk about today was parks. We have a parks capital plan that involves resurfacing the track here at Delta Secondary School, collaborating with school board, rebuilding the Windskill Aquatic Center, our oldest and most out-of-date facility in Delta, and others. Thank you.
With that, that concludes part one of tonight's forum. Audience, please join me in thanking the candidates for their time tonight. Good evening, Mr. Vandervelde, Mr. Randawa, and Mr. Harvey. And thank you for attending this evening. You will all now be familiar with the format. Just a reminder on the timekeeping. Starts with green card, yellow card, turn sideways at 15 seconds, red card and a bell. In the order determined by a random draw of earlier this evening, we will now invite each of you to make some introductory remarks and remind you that you have 1 minute to speak. We'll start with Peter.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Chamber. But mostly thank you, everybody, for coming out and showing an interest in this process. My name is Peter Vandervelden. I have 40 years of construction management experience. A lot of you have built or renovated your homes, and you know how difficult this process and its cost management is. I've spent one term on council, and in 3 years, we maintained our community and did so without raising taxes. I will put this experience to use as mayor for Delta. I will engage the community in our governance and ensure our quality of life is preserved. I will do this by making sure we don't mistake growth for progress. Make no mistake, growth is just anything but progress. The main reason that I chose to run is the current council's failure to oppose the LNG proposals for Tilbury Island. These proposals present a serious concern to our community's health and well-being, as well as our environment. Our community needs to understand these plans and be involved in the process because it will affect all of us. My name is Peter Vandervelden. I'm running as an independent for mayor of Delta.
Thank you, Peter.
Me? I am Joginder Randawa, running for mayor of Delta, and it's very important. The community has a lot of diversification, so we need to have your voices like converging, not diverging. And then we want that we can solve your problems, we can look after our seniors, we can look after our children. The mothers, some mothers, their hearts are not happy because their kids are with autism, diabetes, allergies. In the preschools, daycares, there is no nurses attending them, no EA teachers. I have
Thank
met
you.
so many women.
Thank you. George?
Oh, thank you. Appreciate being here, and I look forward to discussing some of the key interests that we have in Delta. My name's George Harvey. I'm very proud to be your mayor for the last 4 years, and for almost 20 years before that as your city manager. I've lived in Delta since 1976 with my wife Jillian. We've raised 2 children, Tim and Taryn, and now have 2 grandchildren that we're immensely enjoying. I'm running again because I want to ensure Delta continues to move forward in a sustainable way. We're rated one of the best cities, and we are the best city in Metro Vancouver. I want to continue to improve on that and also ensure that our lives go on. And I truly do love Delta. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now shift gears to the question and answer phase of the forum in an effort to give each of you an opportunity to answer some questions specifically directed to the role of mayor. Peter, just a word of caution that on your first answer there, or on your opening remarks, the mic was a little bit too close.
Okay.
So just,
there.
Yeah, perfect. Please remember that you will have 1 minute to respond to each question. Delta has 68 kilometers of dikes, and realizing that raising dikes is a multi-government project, what steps will you take as mayor to advocate for funding and keep this need top of mind?
This one's a bit of a minefield, specifically here in Ladner. Dikes, I believe, are a federal concern. Obviously, the province wants to get involved, and it's generally a cost-shared project. I would think, as such, there's 3 levels of government involved to make decisions, which makes it a long, drawn-out process. There's a lot of things that can be done with a dike in terms of overall use. However, the cost is obviously very prohibitive, and we need to start a dialogue with both senior levels of government in order to get to a point where we can decide what we can do with them and who's going to support or rather pay for it.
Thank you. Joe Gitter. Joe Gitter.
Can you please repeat the question?
Certainly. Delta has 68 kilometers of dikes, and realizing that raising dikes is a multi-government project, what steps will you take as mayor to advocate for funding and keep this need top of mind?
All the projects, whatever comes to the city or the city plans, we must collaborate with the provincial government, with the federal government, and receive funding. Also to see that the project are safeguarded with all the safety, because public safety is very important. So we have to have a combination of safety plus density, safety, density, and kind of things like you can say, we should not have that sprawling something coming up, which people don't like. And our Deltans are like with different minds. In South Delta, different thoughts are there. North Delta, different thoughts are there. And Tawasan, maybe also same way.
Thank you, Joe Gitter. And George.
Oh, thank you for the question. Yes, we have 68 kilometers of dikes. Yes, they need repairs. We do repairs when we get funding from the provincial and federal government, but it comes in small pieces. The other cities are asking for that same cost. The province used to have the responsibility for the dikes until they dumped it back on the local governments a number of years ago. We cannot do this on our own. And I've been working with fellow mayors of Metro Vancouver. We set up a committee, and we're now talking to the federal governments and the provincial governments, stressing upon them, they have to take it back. We can't do it on our own. We have to have them take back the responsibility. And I'll continue to work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Next question. In both the short and long term, what programs and/or policies would you introduce to both attract new young people to our community, as well as keep those that have been raised here from moving away?
I think obviously cost is an important factor. I mean, Delta is a very attractive place. Everybody this evening has said they would like to maintain it. They would like to maintain the integrity of the community or communities as they are. I think in order to attract people, we need to have spectacular events, the kind of destination events that some places already have sort of imposed on their communities and or worked out with their citizens. I think these are the kinds of things that draw people. Obviously, our bicycling program may be something to that effect. Shopping is obviously here. The fact that there's very little in the way to work is something that we probably need to cultivate, is some level of employment for younger people. Lastly, we need housing, obviously. One of the things that's come up today is the comment of critical housing shortage, and I'm questioning that. I know we have a housing shortage and we need to look at that, but whether it's critical, I would question that.
Joginder.
I think mics, I can't, there is some echo sound coming like here. So can you please control a little bit mics some way? The sound is.
Is everyone else hearing me?
No, it is.
Okay. I'll read the question again for you, but I think I'm coming in clear.
Now it's a little bit better.
Okay. I'm getting other feedback here, so
Yeah.
let's try it again. In both the short and long term, what programs and or policies would you introduce to both attract new young people to our community, as well as keep those that have been raised here from moving away?
For long-time policies like affordable housing, that will be long-time policies forever going on. And short-time policies will be like reforms in crime prevention and crime prevention, fire, and safety-oriented things. And we will provide the Delta Police with the latest digital tools because the crime is borderless. Also, we'll see that there is ambulance station in Tawasan, it is not there. And also a ambulance station and medical clinic. They need it very desperately because some people talk to me about that. And we have to keep these plans in a precise manner with all type of tools we can use and have very specific decisions.
Thank you, Joginder. George, same question.
Well, thank you. And as mayor, I've been privileged to work with a lot of our sporting groups and talking to a lot of young families and at doors that we've been knocking on over the last number of months. If new young families, it's great to see young families and with young children moving here into Ladner and Tawasin and in North Delta. And what attracts them to our city? It's safe. We have our own police department. We have a robust fire department. But most importantly, we also have great recreational facilities. They love the sports communities and they want to be part of that. So my mission as the mayor and with the supportive council is what we said before. We have robust plans to repair our tracks, put new sports fields in, rebuild Winskill. That's what attracts families. That's what keeps people wanting to move back. My own daughter has moved back into Delta. I'm so happy about that. I know my wife is too. But that community spirit is what makes people want to live here. And actually our young people try to moving back. Housing's a key. It'll always be a key. And again, we have a program to start moving on that and by providing more options for people.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Mea culpa on the last question. I should have reminded everybody that we're doing a rolling order tonight, so we should have started with Joginder on that last question. So I'm going to start with him on the next question, Peter, just as a reminder.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear about what you're saying.
So it's a rolling order tonight. So
Okay.
you started on the first question, and then it should have been Joginder. That's my fault. I should have reminded everyone.
No
So
problem.
Joginder, you will start on the next question. Okay, it will be yours to answer first, and then we'll go.
First you will start then?
No, you will start first.
Okay.
You'll go first, then it will go over to George, and then we'll go to Peter. Okay? What further steps will you champion to move towards reconciliation with local Indigenous communities?
Indigenous communities, we must have very amicable relations, and we need to fulfill the needs of the indigenous people because we are on their land. And also the education side of those kids or drug addictions we have to deal with. As a mayor, if I am elected, I will have special psychiatrist doctor provided to them, and often, they should be given all kind of aids, medical, plus some subsidy in their, medicines, kind of things. We have to propose to the provincial government as well. And furthermore, I can say we have to make their career just like us, and we cannot just let them go the way they are going. We have to make equal, everything
Thank
for
you.
them.
George.
Well, I'm very proud of our reconciliation record that we've had this term. I've immediately, once elected, established very good relationships with Chief Baird, who unfortunately just passed away recently. The thoughts are with his family and with the Tsawwassen First Nations, and also Chief Sparrow from the Musqueam. We are working together on a number of projects. We're working together on dredging of the secondary channels in Ladner, which are filled now. Boats sit on mud too often, and the fish boats the First Nations are using have difficulties getting out. We have the first time for an Indigenous announcement. We use that regularly in all our council meetings. I use it personally whenever I'm out into the community. So our reconciliation is strong, and it's important, and it's a passion of mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Peter.
I'm not quite clear as to what process exists between the First Nation government of the Tsawwassen Nation here and Delta, but I think that obviously it's part of the consideration of communication that we've been talking about. I think that communication doesn't seem to be real clear between the people of Delta and the council, and I'm not sure that any level of communication is taking place on a regular basis with the Native community. I think that business takes place and is developing quite rapidly there, and I think that in order to create more of a cohesive community with the Tsawwassen First Nation, we work together with them on whatever developments are taking place and plan some processes in place with the Native community so that there's an actual greater mingling of our peoples.
Thank you. Next question, this time George, first up. We've heard from Fortis BC in support of its Tilbury LNG proposed expansion project, and from groups like the Boundary Bay Conservation Committee in opposition to it. As mayor, how would you ensure that Delta residents' perspectives on this issue are better understood?
I'd like to point out at this time, the lead agency is the provincial government under insofar as their scopes of environmental assessment. So they are the lead department. I've been also stated, and I've been quoted to say that as mayor, and since the Fortis development is in Delta, very careful to be neutral, not to say I'm for it or against it until an actual application is received. And that application will only be received if the environmental assessment is approved by the Minister of Environment for the provincial government. So at this time, should it get approved, we will have an open, full forum with all information available. But ask people to review the environmental assessment reports that are there to date on the Provincial Ministry of Environment website. Thank you.
All right. In the spring of 2021, we had record precipitation. Summer of 2021, we had a heat dome that killed 1,400 people.
Joginder, we're on Peter's time, please. Can you hold your comments until Peter gets a chance to answer his question?
Can we restart?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Spring of 2021, we had record precipitation. Summer of 2021, we had a heat dome that killed 1,400 people. The fall of 2021, we had weather bombs, atmospheric rivers, and a tornado. Spring of 2022, we had floods that cost $675 million of insured losses. Approximately another $250 million in repairs to our highways. We cannot continue to subsidize and develop fossil fuels. LNG is a fossil fuel. Mr. Harvey, I believe, is stalling. I think that the hope is that the project will be so big, it'll be too big to fail. I think we should get the people of Delta involved now, and they need to know the dangers of these proposals and the environmental dangers to our community as well.
This LNG line is, maybe hazardous running through the community. There could be pipe leak, there could be sometime fire with the leakage. So we have to discuss this with the provincial government, and provincial government must create some formula where we should be safe, because public safety is most important. LNG line, of course, the depth of it, how much, and how much the joints of the line pipes are very perfect or not, and the material used for that is how capable of flow of the oil with the pressure so much, means how much pressure could be there. So all these scenarios
Thank
we
you,
have to see.
Joginder.
And
This time, Peter will start. What is the one thing that you would change, add, or delete from the way council currently functions?
In the way council what?
Currently functions.
I think, again, this evening and last evening, the basic problem that seems to persist is that people in Delta don't feel heard. And I think that whatever public forums we have that has been provided by the council either comes up with an answer that people are unhappy with, or it's unclear why people are not getting what they've asked for. I think obviously the communication level needs to improve, and one of the things I hope to do if I was elected as mayor is actually take out a monthly column in The Optimist to describe what council has been doing and what will be coming up.
the council's planning system and the way council works should be amended, because the Deltons are not taken into confidence by the council for the resolution they pass. So it's very important that people should be taken in faith first before passing any resolution. That becomes like a dictatorship. You just put on the people. So also red tape should be reduced, and city like licensing and pre-zoning licensing and business, all these fees should be very suitable and not much for the people. And further, I can say tax should not be raised so much.
Thank you, Joginder. George.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me. And actually, a good benefit of COVID, if you could call it that, was it changed the way that local governments are actually communicating with their people. For once, we opened it up virtually. And so that you could either attend in person, once that was available for you, or you could watch it on your computer, on the home, or you could phone in if you was part of a public hearing. We also have those recordings available so that anybody who wants to see what council and how they decided on a project, they have that ability by going online and looking at the videotape at any time. And so we are really improving communications. And I just want to point out that I was very proud that we're having every other meeting since I've been mayor, and council supported my motion to have that in North Delta. It's not just about South Delta, it's about including all of Delta. But thank you, and I hope to start my virtual town hall meetings that I did during COVID on a regular basis after the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Joginder, first question to you. You'll start. Do you support the hiring of an economic development officer for Delta? Why or why not? Question is to you, Joginder. Do you need to read the card?
Yeah, I need, because the echo is coming here.
Just going to do an audience check again. Are we okay in the back row? Can you hear me okay?
We need not to hire economic development officer for the city, because already taxpayers are paying so much tax. And again, we want to, from the taxpayers' money, we are hiring an officer, wastage of money. Like the public relation officer was hired for $40,000 before. So we have to be very cautious for spending taxpayers' money. That's very paining to me. So we must see inflation is so much, and the pensions are very low for seniors, and even wages a little bit higher, but when you go for buying grocery, there is hardly anything you get in your cart. So all these things we have to see, and we have not to spend undue money on hiring development officer or so for economic things. We have a lot of knowledge. We all can share. In the council, there are so many candidates.
Thank you. George.
Thank you, and it was my idea to have an economic development officer. Unfortunately, COVID did slow that up, but I am committed to hiring an economic development officer within this existing complement that serves the mayor's office. Economic development will be run out of the mayor's office. It's important that the development community and anybody who wishes to build something and invest in Delta has the ability to come into the mayor's office and work with the mayor, assigned councillors, our city manager, and staff at the very, very beginning. They need to know that the political body of Delta is supporting their development and supporting their expenditures. I'm very much looking forward to that, and it's something that we can turn around overnight. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you. I think it's probably a step forward. I think the business community would like that, and I think possibly it's also putting the cart before the horse. I think in terms of setting the community up, we need to set the development plans in place first and see where we're going with density and how that's going to affect our transit and traffic, rather. And I think as long as we haven't established that sort of information and people don't know where the community is going in that sense, we can't have businesses deciding to move here either. I mean, people are going to be feeling insecure in that kind of an environment. I think that down the road, it's probably something that will really help set up how we develop Delta for the future. But in the meantime, I think it is putting the cart before the horse.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Confusing myself with my own order here.
That's okay.
Which question you had?
Nope, I will have a question for you shortly, but I've messed up the order now. What steps would you take as Delta Council member? This is to George, by the way, I think. Yes.
Okay, now you're mixing everybody up.
Yes. Okay, we're going to start with George. What steps would you take as a Delta Council member to attract businesses that fill service gaps in our community?
Well, it's very important that Delta continue its good work insofar as being recognized as a great place to live, work, and play, and invest and set up businesses. We should be doing as much as we possibly can to support the business community. Our relationship with the Delta Chamber of Commerce has never been stronger. They do tremendous work, and they work as a good partner with us. Anything we can do to attract businesses and show them how they can actually come in, get quick permits, get their license permits, we need to do that. And we want to partner with the Delta Chamber of Commerce. They have a very close connection with the business community, and it's a very important part of our tax base. Thank you.
Peter.
Yes, thank you. I think obviously the business licensing issue is a serious one. It's come up again last night in terms of how long it takes to get an actual license for a business here. I think if our council is flexible in that sense and has a sense of where we're going with our business community, I think these decisions will come easier. Again, I think it's all partly required to be part of a complete plan, a complete development plan for the communities. And I think that obviously, as I've said before, we might want to consider an award system for electing future councils, because I think that each part of our community has distinct needs, and we need to recognize that.
Joe Ginder.
First step, we must have very good infrastructure, transportation, and areas where the floor area, like some restaurants, their floor area should be, because of COVID, people have complications in narrow restaurants, and they could get the disease from one another, though, staying apart for 3 feet or so. But we have to have very specific steps for getting business attracted to Delta, and Deltans like to have nice food to eat, like European continental, in North Delta. Dave has talked to me. He don't get the proper food in North Delta. So we have to have some kind of food court where all variety of foods are there and people enjoy.
Thank you, Joseph. Next question, starting with Peter. I have heard many candidates emphasize the importance of more housing for seniors, low-income residents, and adults with intellectual disabilities. What existing projects would you like to see expedited?
I have some concern about all of this. I think that we do need seniors housing. One of the first things that came out of the Southlands was the small home that was set up on the mall to indicate that we could have housing for seniors built up on the Southlands. So far, I'm not seeing much in the way of that kind of development in the Southlands. I think the council has strengths through their committees. If they give their committees some more power, we can actually get more public input as to exactly what is needed. I think it also has the Board of Variance through which it can actually ask developers to do certain things in these developments like the Southlands so that the various housing needs that we do have are accommodated.
Thank you.
So for it's again a kind of affordability of houses relative question. So we must give little attention to Kathleen Higgins' proposal paper. And she has built 4 houses in her one house, and she's living in one, other is given to all her with children, or she rented, I don't know what is the thing there in their house. But that's a very good proposal, and it may apply to some areas and may not apply to a lot of areas. So as South Delta wants to have their own way of living, like the environment, they like it, so it will be like this. So it's the feedback from all the audience that what they want, citizens of Delta, what they want. So according to that, the standards should be set and adhered to.
Thank you. George.
Delta has recently approved a housing plan. And that housing plan is a robust document that looks forward to the direction and gives recommendations for us to move in the future. But we need to move on that now. And the Achieving for Delta goal is to provide housing for everybody, all those people that need housing, whether it's young families, whether it's seniors, whether people with disabilities. We need to move in that direction. Our goal would be to concentrate development along the Scott Road corridor, Ladner Trunk Road, and 56th Street. Those are the opportunities for us to build more housing options. There's areas up there, especially in North Delta and Scott Road. We already have a mayor's task force that outlines the vision for the housing up in that corridor. We have rapid bus moving in within next year. So that's what this council needs to move to do, is to move forward as quickly as possible, but with good plans and good projects. And we have very good interest from the development community to do all of that. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I know, Joginder, you've read this question already, but I do need to ask it for the audience's sake. Over the past 4 years, the City of Delta has undertaken the development of a cycling master plan. What steps would you take to implement strategies as a part of a Made in Delta active transportation solution to connect businesses, industry, and workers and address commuting issues?
Me?
Yes.
The steps to be taken, very concrete steps should be taken, especially George Massey tunnel replacement, and the bridge must be constructed because the commuters, families, the business people all have a lot of flow in the traffic to our Delta area from outside. Other way, we need for cycling routes, we have to have precise plans. As it's written there in the question that the Delta Council has already planned master plan, but that master plan will, when unfold, that's the problem. So master plans are made but never unfolded. So we have to have quick actions, and then only we can, decision should be taken in a decisive manner. So that's what we are lacking in the council.
George.
Well, thank you. I'm very proud of our master cycling plan. Our staff worked with the cycling community and hub representatives from Delta. It's one that's going to set us forward insofar as where we should be building. Every year, we will put capital funds away to improve and expand the cycling plan in Delta. I want to say that I'm also planning to go back, subject to the election results, of course, with the Minister of Transportation provincially, Minister Fleming, to Ottawa. We are going to be pushing Ottawa to release funds that they have set aside for the George Massey Tunnel replacement to build that second exit out of Ladner. And that will include an active transportation cycling network that will go through the tunnel and provide also connections to other areas in Delta. So that is my goal, and that's what I'm going to be working on. But that second exit out of Ladner is vital. This is the only chance we're going to be able to achieve that, and my commitment is there to make that happen.
Thank you, George. So I just looked at my clock. We have about 10 minutes left, so we'll take that as the last question.
Am I going to get a turn on that?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Peter, I'm so sorry. They're really throwing me a loop with this whole rolling order thing. Go ahead.
I actually don't have a lot to say. I like what Delta has done with the master cycling plan, George. Thank you. I think that that's actually a very good start. I think that some of the things that have come up in the last couple of days are sort of a spoke or a wrench in the wheel, a wrench in the spokes for that. 120th is not a cycling corridor, 56th is not a cycling corridor, and some of the other way the community has been developed, it's very difficult for cycles to actually move through to these major areas in between our community without having to go onto these major streets. I think we need to remember that we're a rural community. The only way we can get to Vancouver, Richmond, or Surrey is by highways, so everybody's going to have cars. And I think that once we're developing a cycle plan, we need to make sure that that's integrated with our automotive society.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to closing remarks and apologize. We'll start with George in reverse order.
My sincere appreciation to the Delta Chamber for hosting the debate here tonight. I want to commit to the Chamber that as Mayor and with the support of Council, Delta will continue to financially support your organization and will ensure your involvement in working together with the Mayor's Office and Delta Council in supporting the growth and resilience of our business community. Last year, Delta was ranked as the best community in Metro Vancouver. And as your Mayor and with the support of Council, I want to keep it that way. We need a mayor and council that will continue making Delta a welcoming place for people of all ages and continue to be known as a sustainable, inclusive community, and accomplish this by increasing housing options for young families, seniors, and Delta's most vulnerable, supporting adults with varying disabilities, increasing daycare spaces in Delta, continue keeping taxes amongst the lowest in the Metro Vancouver. To achieve this, I need qualified, experienced council members that stand on their own and will offer their options and vote by how they believe this can best be accomplished. Only by electing and achieving for Delta candidates as a mayor and council will we continue moving forward as an inclusive, welcome city and the best place to live and raise a family. Thank you for thank you for listening tonight.
Thank you, George.
I would request the Deltans that you must have a change in the council because the things have not gone that way as it should have been gone. So we have to have a lot of, new ideas, new things to think over about the development, about the businesses, about the cycle lanes and infrastructure, restaurants, food courts, and moreover, we have to see the minds of our own people, take their feedback, then act. We are not asking anybody and we are just passing resolution, top of the other, and no output. So we have to be very precise, very correct in doing everything. And I, Joginder Randhawa, as an independent request, you should select a new mayor. Thank you.
Peter.
Thank you for coming out, everybody. I really appreciate this. As an independent, I have a serious concern. There's very little overlap between council and school trustees. Mr. Harvey has amassed his team as a campaign funding mechanism to keep him, Mr. Kruger, and their team in power indefinitely. This was not the intent of the municipal election finance laws. The intent was to restrict spending on elections so that everybody can participate on a level playing field. Anyway, these debates have shown a strong level of dissatisfaction with Council's approach to public input. This level of control does not serve Delta. We need independent people with critical thinking skills and skills that they're willing to exercise. People that can communicate with the community and create a governance that makes community decisions for the community and not a select group. As mayor, I will oppose the Tilbury expansion proposals to keep this amazing community safe and protect our environment. I will not increase taxes for 2 years, and I will give a quarter of the mayor's salary back to the community. On the October 15th, please vote for Peter van der Velden as an independent mayor.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, gentlemen. Audience, please join me in thanking them for their time tonight. That brings tonight's forum to a close. On behalf of the Delta Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank our candidates, attendees, and volunteers for participating in the second of 2 Delta Chamber of Commerce All Candidates Business Forums. I would also like to thank the Delta Chamber staff and the team here at the Genesis Theatre for their fantastic setup and behind-the-scenes work. Also remember to look for a recorded edition of tonight's session on Delta Cable coming shortly, and for responses to any unanswered questions on our Delta Chamber of Commerce website on Monday, October 3rd. Finally, a reminder to all of you in attendance that advanced voting opportunities are available on October 1st, 5th, and 6th at City Hall, South Delta Rec Center, North Delta Center for the Arts, and Pinewood Elementary from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on each day. Delta residents can also, of course, cast a ballot at their designated voting location on General Voting Day, Saturday, October 15th, again from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let's all do our part and remind family, friends, and neighbors to get out and vote. Thank you tonight. Thank you.